Tried anything yet, but I want to.
Some of those old stones are very weathered and they are very hard to read.
Right. Especially the one where I went to the Rogers Burleson. It's up by the airport. I'm trying to think, Burleson Rogers, or the one that's like private property.
Uh-huh.
I've been to that one.
Rogers Hill, Burleson.
Yes. I went there like last week. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the one I was talking about. That was the one that I had posted pictures online, and there were so many people that were interested in locating those.
That one's really neat.
Is it?
Oh, okay. Yes.
Well, that's kind of down in South Central Texas, or
yeah.
Because none of these other people live in Texas except us, Amy. So they're not quite familiar with it. And y'all know Texas is a huge state. JD, yes, you're kind of familiar. That's down close to Bastrop.
Right.
Yes.
I've been to that one. Also, April Chester just joined us.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, Katie.
I'm so glad you're feeling better, April.
Oh, today's been my best day yet, so I am too, let me tell you. You don't want this stuff. The cough about knocked the wind out of me for 3 days. I couldn't catch my breath, and
wow.
I still can't smell. I can't smell anything, and I still have a little cough, and really tired out easily. But I feel I'm very lucky because a lot of people around me aren't.
Right.
So. But I had a rough weekend last weekend. I was a little worried.
How many days have you been ill with it?
Since about the 12th, I think, is when it started. And the doctor told me somewhere between 2 weeks you should start feeling better. So that would be today. And today when I got up, I started thinking I might make it. I'm starting to feel a little better and more positive. It also makes you very emotional. I don't know if a lot of people have talked about that, but I've cried about a lot of silly things like commercials and just all kinds of stuff. But I'm just glad to be feeling better. I can tell you that.
Where are you, April?
I'm in Reno, Nevada.
Oh, okay.
And I just found out Cindy over here.
Yes,
hey.
April, this is an amazing moment. April, I'm so glad to meet you and see you, and I'm glad that you joined us.
I'm so excited to know somebody's here in Reno.
Yeah, this is a cousin that I've just discovered this past week, that you're here. You're a cousin of mine here in Reno, and I feel like that we've been in Reno for 5 or 6 years, and we've been the only, we're the only ones out here. Our family is elsewhere, and come to find out, April, I'm going to meet you in person.
Oh, I agree. I just found out you're here today because JD told me.
Yes. I've got working an issue in the background, and I don't seem 100% present with that. But again, April, I'm so thrilled to meet you, that you're here with us today, and that I'm meeting you. We may just abandon the fact that we're not on video on Facebook and YouTube and just run with the audio there and just keep moving forward. If you're on the Zoom call with us today, you can see us and we can see you and we can engage and talk. But if you weren't able to get into the Zoom room for whatever reason, at least you can hear us right now as we speak on Facebook and YouTube. I know that Father William here also from Reno is here to open us up in prayer. Father William, do you mind giving us a few minutes more to just kind of hang out and talk as a group?
That will be fine.
Awesome. Okay, fantastic. And if there's any issues or if you need to go or anything like that, are you able to reach me here?
Yes.
Okay, so you just let me know. But other than that, I'm just going to take a little back seat for a minute and pull things up so that we can get started. Okay.
Who is Miss Annette?
I don't know.
She's on mute, it looks like.
Unmute yourself,
There.
Annette.
Did I unmute myself?
Yes. Yes.
See me? Oh,
Yes.
no.
You're good.
Anyway.
You're good.
Hey,
Hi.
I see JD up there.
Hey,
Where are you, Miss Annette?
I can't hear you.
Where are you? Are you
On
in
the
Reno?
computer.
Who's running the family?
Have I failed this already? If this
I'll
is a
send you a
test, I
note.
have failed it. I'm
Where do you live?
In a house.
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh my gosh.
uh,
Hello.
this is Annette Rowland. She is the one that I just repaired her great grandfather's and his wife's tombstones. And
so sweet.
she is definitely, and this is the first time I've seen her without a mask, so I didn't really recognize her.
That's the difference.
Put it
That's-
on. Oh, it's so. I mean, we're all Burlesons here, right?
No,
No,
Is that what we are? Oh, well, what are we?
Troublemakers.
we're trying to work that out.
Yeah.
this is a Thanksgiving dinner Zoom, and it was put out by Cindy Burleson, but everybody here is not Burleson, so they might not be interested in a lot of stuff that we want to talk about, but we'll still get acquainted with everybody. And
Great.
I think between the Burleson Research Group and the Burleson Family Association, we kind of took over. Not really wanting to control it, but we've got a lot of people coming in through our inviting them and everything. And we didn't know who else would be. But Cindy's got a lot of presenters that I think we'll all enjoy. But right now we're just killing time while she's trying to get the Facebook and YouTube video hooked up so everybody can see us.
Oh,
Did I explain that close?
yeah.
Yes. Good job. Good job.
I think so.
The screen is running about 5 to 10 seconds behind.
Is there a picture on it?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. For those of you that don't know, this is my husband sitting back here. He's the president of the Burleson Family Association. His name is Clarence Burleson. And I'm Kay Burleson, by the way. So Cindy, he said that your live stream, which he's doing, is about, did you say minutes or seconds?
Seconds.
Okay.
5 or 10 seconds
It's
behind
running.
what y'all are saying here.
Okay, 5 to 10 seconds behind what we are saying here live. So it's got just a little bit of lag time in there.
Yeah, that's
But there's no
perfectly
picture.
normal.
Still
It's
no
perfectly-
picture.
Perfectly normal for there to be that lag time. It's not so normal not to have video on. So I'm working desperately on getting that video going. The good thing is we have that connection, and we are able to connect to Facebook and YouTube. I'm actually feeling the need for a moment of prayer. Father William, yes, would you be ready to move in that direction?
I certainly am.
Okay.
Cindy, your camera is not on.
All right. Can you see my lovely screen?
We see your photograph.
You see your photograph.
Okay.
We have somebody that wants to come on.
So cute.
Was that a cat?
Yeah.
Oh, Tux. We were wondering about Bob's cat, if there was going to be other cats on the call. So Tux
Right.
cat has company there. Let me just take a moment to tell you about Father William. He is our rector and dean at Trinity Episcopal Cathedral. He is our chief spiritual and administrative leader. Father William was born in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and raised in the nearby town of Lenox, which is home to the Boston Symphony at Tanglewood. He grew up with four other Roman Catholic, or three other siblings, three brothers and a sister, if I got that right,
Yes.
with a Lutheran and Roman Catholic backgrounds. His education involved an art degree from Arizona State University, a master's of divinity from Lutheran Theological Seminary in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, a master of arts in liturgy from University of Notre Dame, and a doctor of ministry from Virginia Technological Seminary. And I appreciate that Father William has offered today to lead us in a prayer of thanksgiving. Father William?
Well, that was quite an introduction. You're polishing my pedestal. The Lord be with you all.
And also
Let
with
us
you.
pray. Almighty God, Father of all mercies, we, your unworthy servants, give you humble thanks for all your goodness and loving kindness to us and to all that you have made. We bless you for our creation, our preservation, and all the blessings of this life. But above all, for your unmeasurable love and the redemption of the world through our Lord Jesus Christ, for the means of grace, for the hope of glory. And we pray that you give us an awareness of your mercies, that with truly thankful hearts, we may show forth your praise, not only with our lips, but in our lives, by giving up ourselves to your service, and by walking before you in holiness and righteousness all our days. Through Christ Jesus our Lord, we pray. Amen.
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 Thank you.
Many blessings to all of you and a joyous and grateful Thanksgiving. And it's so wonderful to see a family clan like this come together. Enjoy your time together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you for your blessing.
The next person that we wanted to talk with or first up is Darcy Patterson. She is also from Reno, and she comes here today because I've known Darcy for about 5 years and asked her to come. And when we were talking about who to bring to the table and talk about different topics and so forth, Darcy was definitely, one of the first people that I called, because what Darcy has to say, and not necessarily what she has to say, but our listening to what Darcy is saying. So our listening in this moment is most important. Darcy is going to, if we were to listen to what she's saying, she's telling us her story of losing her daughter to the opioid epidemic. And just want to welcome you, Darcy.
Thank you.
If we were to go back to, well, I tell you what, unfortunately, I'm unable to, I can share the video and we'll hear audio of the video that you made as a PSA for Wake Up Nevada. I so wish everyone could see it today, but at least those in some places will be able to at least hear your video.
My daughter Kirsten died right here in her car. It was her birthday. She was only 21. After 6 months of treatment for addiction, she overdosed on opioids and lost her life. Nearly every day in Nevada, someone dies from an opioid overdose. Don't let that be your friend, child, spouse, or daughter. Wake up, Nevada. It's time to start having real conversations about opioid addiction. Visit wakeupnv.org to learn more about preventing opioid addiction.
And the video itself, shot here in Reno, it's a series and a PSA campaign, if lack of better words. It just, however that went together, Darcy, it's a heartfelt campaign. It's a very, very means a lot to, speaks volumes, put it that way. But with us just talking amongst ourselves here today on Thanksgiving Day in a casual conversation about a heavy topic, if I just want to ask you, if you did go back to what was ground zero of this experience, as a parent, when you look back, when did this journey through addiction begin for you and your family?
Well, first of all, I'm not a Burleson and I live in Reno also. Thank you, Cindy, for having me. When she originally asked me, I said, oh goodness, this is pretty heavy for a Thanksgiving Day, but I'm going to talk about the things I am thankful for. I think my journey with my daughter and our family in addiction started when she was about 15. She was a sophomore in high school, and we had, she was just this incredible, smart, independent, wanted to be an adult gal, and none of those things happened at 15, but she wanted to make them happen. She wanted to move out. She wanted to be an adult. Like I said, she was very, very smart and determined to do things ahead of time, without, taking the stages and the steps. So it was about 15, I'd say, is when she started her journey, or we started our journey.
Well, were there warning signs that you could share with us?
Yes, I think I'm very thankful that there are warning signs that you can look to. So this is something that I believe is really important. These are just a few of the warning signs. Her grades started to decline. Then she was not going to school. She had these new friends in quotes, and kind of left her old friends behind. She was very, on top of just being a girl at 15, she was very moody. She had headaches, she was nauseated. These are things that you can look for in anyone. That's just not your child. You can look for, maybe a spouse or maybe a family member. These signs are pretty much across the board, except for school, of course. One of the warning signs too, which seems obvious, but it was not to me. She was using heroin, so we found syringes, we found foil, which is a part of it. We found burnt areas that we couldn't account for. So those are a few that I know from her, from her use. There are many, many others, and everybody is a little different in their use. And But I'm grateful for wakeupnevada.org because we have created this community and we can share those warning signs with parents, with family members, and then they can get help. So they can reach out. They can reach out to any of us and get help.
And there's some great documentaries out there, I know, on Netflix and such that are documenting the, opioid epidemic that we have in our country, and what begins as, a prescription from your doctor for back pain that you get from your pharmacist ends up through the course of things as, syringes shooting heroin up your arms. So it's that's a topic that we will toss aside for another time. Let me ask you about you. How is your advocacy, your work through Wake Up Nevada? How is speaking up like this helping you heal?
Right after she died, I jumped right into advocacy. There's so many ways to do that and be the voice of the kids, because they can no longer talk about it. So in doing advocacy, starting this initiative, working through the PSAs and Facebook, we have a Facebook spot and a website. I'm able to reach out to other moms that may be in that situation where their child is out there using. I'm out there to educate. I want them to know, like we talked about, I want them to know about the warning signs, but I also want them to know how prevalent this is in our area. So I feel blessed that I can do that for others. My voice is my daughter's voice, and many, many others who've died. And that was really a gift that she gave to me, is to be able to speak up and educate, get out in the community, get on Facebook, get on podcast, put myself out there. And it really brings me a sense of peace and calm. And it also, it really just makes me, the big realization is this is our community and we have to do these things together, and as in everybody else's community, but we have to know what we're doing. We have to know what we're looking for. We have to know where we're going with this and be on the same page. So that's pretty much my whole goal, to, reduce the opioid epidemic, and just to love parents where they're at, family members, and get some help for their family members.
Darcy, did you start that organization?
I did not. We have a grant through the police department, and so we have a co-op, and there are many people involved. Like there's treatment centers that are all involved, and there's also police department, obviously, and then there's a gal who wrote the grant who's involved. There's a gentleman from UNR that's part of us, and so we've kind of created that. And then we had CC Media, and they came in and made obviously the PSAs and the voiceovers for radio, and then we had billboards made, which is kind of interesting to see yourself up there on the big billboard, but just to read that for more information, when you're seeing him. I didn't create it, but I tell you what, I know it was put into place for sure at the right time, which is right before COVID. We got everything out. We were able to reach out, and I'm thankful, very thankful for that.
I'll bet you
for
helped
this,
a lot of people.
For Wake Up Nevada. I'm thankful for very, very, very intertwined in the community with, the treatment, recovery, all of those spots. So,
Well, I
yeah.
think, Darcy, you just answered the next question that I was going to ask you, and that is what you're thankful for. And you're thankful that the PSAs and billboards and everything went out before COVID. But what else are you thankful for today?
Oh, I am truly thankful for Narcan.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about that. What is an
Narcan? That Narcan is naloxone, and it reverses opioid overdose. So come upon someone who has overdosed, you can, use this. This goes nasally, and possibly save their life. Now, we give out 2 because one isn't working anymore because of the fentanyl that's brought into these opioids now. So we have 2. And I'm thankful that we have training for that we have, resources to get it. We have we are able to train our community and train people who, a mom at home or a dad at home. And it's been very successful, and I'm thankful for that.
And that truly is, that's a big project here. I know in Reno, and Darcy, tell me how large the scope is, but if you're outside of the Reno or Nevada area, to just describe and back up what she's saying, I mean, I see Darcy at all the high schools. There's a huge grant that has provided these things. What is it? Fentanyl to just, they want them in everybody's glove compartments because it helps with ambulances that not enough first-hand emergency people can respond to the amount of opioid crises. So if people had these things that Darcy just showed you, which are called the fentanyl kits.
No, the Narcan.
Narcan, I'm sorry. Oh, definitely. Okay, the Narcans if you have that in the glove compartment of your car, you're actually helping the state in your cities with their first responders workload. The opioid epidemic is so intense. So that is what she's talking about, and what she's showing us are those kits. Was that grant here in Nevada, or was it through the Reno Police Department, or what?
The grant is through the Reno Police Department, but there are many places for us to get Narcan in our area. We have Hope's, that you can pick it up at Hope's Clinic, Foundation for Recovery. They're very big in handing out Narcan. And, we've done a lot of resources, well, before COVID, where we could sit out and hand out things and talk to people about, what Narcan does. So I'm a nurse, so, I kind of know that, what goes on schematically and physically, but to tell a parent or a family member how to save their family member, you have to kind of talk in a different language. And I'm so thankful that I have people who are giving me the information in order to share that without talking about, well, Narcan, or, specifically, I can talk about, you take this and squirt it up your nose, the end, or start CPR. One other thing that there were a couple other things, if we have a minute, but treatment, we have some incredible treatment centers in our area. And I want to just talk about a couple. Well, WellCare is one. Some of these provide detox, and then they provide long-term rehab. There's Quest, behavioral health, many places. Also, we have the support from Wake Up Nevada. This is a resource sheet, and it has almost every resource in the Reno Sparks area. And it's destructible. So if you hand it out to somebody that lives on the street, they've got it forever.
I've got to see one of those.
Yeah. So, and I'm also, I'm so grateful for the support that I had before Kirsten died and the support that I have after from Al-Anon. I belong to a group on Facebook, many groups, but one is the Addicts Mom. They have some offshoots of that, like the grieving mom, and of course I'm part of that too. And then Not in Vain. There are just many resources and help for people. And I was thankful that a year before she did die, almost a year before that, I was introduced to this. My whole entire goal is to save somebody from living this journey because it's tough.
Well, we're so glad that you're talking with us today about this topic and telling us things that we need. I trust that we're all have our listening ears on and that we're wide open and receiving and hearing what you have to, what you're telling us and what.
Cindy, can I jump in?
Yes.
I've seen the billboards and stuff, and I want to tell you how sorry I am. You lost your daughter. I lost my daughter this year too. And on April 11th, and hers was alcohol and some drugs, over-the-counter drugs, off and on throughout her life, starting when she was 15 too, is when we discovered her drinking for the first time. We took her many times to rehab in Fallon at a place called New Frontier, and thought we had everything, going good for a long time in her life. But the last 10 years, she's just cycled down again. And on the 11th, she pretty much drank herself to death and was found unresponsive, and they couldn't revive her. It's a horrible journey, and sometimes there's just not much you can do as a mom. I tried everything, I can tell you, and held her hand many times in the hospital, praying that she would come back, and took her to treatment and begged her to go to treatment. And now we're working to keep her 3 kids afloat that she left behind. But luckily they're all living with relatives, and we had moved them 8 years ago and all doing well. One of them just started UNR this year, so I'm really proud of her. But I don't want this to be like the sad conversation, but I would love to get together with you two and maybe talk a little bit about how I survived through this, because we had a lot of death in my past married family connected to drugs and alcohol. And so I've had a lot of experience talking to people that have been going through this, and I would love to just get together and talk.
That would be fabulous, April. Thank you. I would love to meet you.
I would love to meet you.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
I would just like to make a comment. Thank you, ladies, so much for sharing your stories with us. And I feel sure there's not anyone in this meeting that has not been affected in some way by someone that has a drug problem. In Texas, of course, they have the opioids, but meth is the main problem here in Texas, and takes the lives of so many of our young kids, teenagers and such. And for all of us who have grandchildren and great grandchildren, yes, we worry continuously. So, you get your children grown and you think maybe you've at least gotten past that hurdle, but then the others come along and here you are back again going, oh, I wonder who's he hanging out with? And so thank you a lot for sharing your stories with us.
Thank you, Kay.
Thank you, Kay.
I'm very blessed to be able to do that.
Just a side note, Afghanistan has supplied the world with heroin for many years, and they have now developed a second industry. They're supplying crystal meth to the Western world. So we have both heroin and crystal meth coming from Afghanistan.
Right.
Yep.
Mexico.
Pretty bad stuff.
Well, speaking there is Bob Quillach, also from Reno. And I think Bob has a special song to share with us. Bob, would you like to share that?
I'd like to talk for a minute about the song. The song is called Keep On Keeping On. And it talks to those of us who have been keeping by ourselves at home for many weeks and months now. And the sense of aloneness that's been created and isolating. And so this is a song that I'd like to share with you. And then I'll talk for a few minutes after the song and share a few of my remedies, things I've done about keeping on. And then I'd like to hear from you. So give me a minute here to get this set up properly.
Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going on. Keep going on song. This is a keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going on. Keep going on song.
I'm going to start it over.
Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going on. Keep going on song. This is a keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going on. Keep going on song. This is a keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going on. Keep going on song. I'm Abigail, and this is Sean, and we're so glad that you turned this on and welcomed us into your home, and you are welcome into our home. We're in Dayton, Ohio. We're in Sean's parents' house. Sean's parents' house. We were in Louisville when the shit hit, and we packed our 3-year-old into a car. We drove kind of far. We drove here, and we've been so lucky and blessed to be safely here. And we thought we'd be here for like 10 days. Tops.
What did we know?
What did we know? What did we know? We thought we knew a lot. We thought we knew a lot. Keep going, keep going, keep going on. Keep going on song. This is a keep going, keep going, keep going on. Keep going on song. This is a keep going, keep going, keep going on. Keep going on song. And we've been mostly healthy. We've been okay. Are you okay? Are you all right? Are you okay? Are you all right? Are you okay? I hope your body's whole tonight. And if your heart is breaking, I hope it's breaking open. And if your breath is shaking, I hope it's shaking through. And I hope that you've watched a lot of really great television, like a lot of it. And I hope that you find a hand lotion that actually makes your skin feel better. And I hope that you have enough to eat. I hope you're getting enough sleep, and I hope you have enough good company or enough good memory to last you a long time. Keep going, keep going, keep going on. Keep going on, song. This is a keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going on. Keep going on, song. Let's bring some joy into the room, why not? We can try it, we can try it. Or some rage, and some grief and relief. Ooh, I hope my rage, I pray my rage is a fire that cleans my mind out and makes me ready to listen. I pray my pain is a river that flows to the ocean that connects my pain to yours. And I pray my happiness is like pollen that flies to you and pollinates your joy. Oh boy, is that possible? I don't know, we are making this up as we go. We have to make it up as we go, but keep going some, oh, we're making it up. We're making it up as we go. Keep going on, song. And I pray that when we meet again, that the world has changed into the world that we are imagining now together. And I pray that the world has become the world that we're planting inside of ourselves for each other, for our ancestors, and for our kids. Ooh, and we're gonna start. This is a rough beginning. That's all I've got is a rough beginning to offer you. We're gonna start by singing some songs in this tiny space together. We're just gonna sing some songs for you, and we hope that when you hear them, you will feel a little bit less alone, and we will feel a little bit less alone in the work and in the hurt, and we will be together tonight somehow, whenever this is, wherever this is. We will be together tonight for the keep going on song. This is a keep going on. Keep going on song. This is a keep going on. Keep going on song. This is a keep going on. Keep going on song. This is a keep going on.
Wow. I told Cindy I wasn't sure I'd be able to take care of this part of the program because that song makes me cry, actually. It touches something in me very deep. The music, the people, I'm not sure, but it usually makes me cry by the end of the song. And I love it, of course. It's so to get away from them and the song, keeping on, I think is something that that we're all faced with. And I know I'll speak about myself for a minute and then open it up to you. My least favorite thing would be to wind up sitting on the couch, wondering what to do throughout a day with no work and no activities and nobody to talk to and whatnot. And so it becomes a question for me of like, what am I willing to do to avoid becoming sad and depressed and isolated? And am I willing to do a few things to structure my life in a meaningful way that creates some happiness and some of the joy she was talking about? Wasn't that wonderful? She said, let's do it right now. Let's just create it. I thought, yeah, we can do that. We can do that. So a few things about me. I've taken this, I love to read. My latest book is Chenard, who founded Patagonia, and his book, I'll Let My People Go Surfing. And it's about an ethical approach to business and good business. And I found it very inspirational. I've gotten interested just in kind of self-management and self-discipline and how can I organize things to kind of keep me moving and going on. And I found some things that help. Several people I know that talk about self-management are against making lists of things to do. And I've come to agree with them. I go through a million 3x5 note cards And when I think of things that I need to do or want to do, I make a separate note on each one and I throw it in this little basket. And I'm able at the beginning of the week to kind of organize them and prioritize them as things that seem important to do. That's helped me. That's provided some good structure. And the problem with a list for me is once you make that list, it becomes overwhelming and it becomes depressing. If you have a list with 30 things to do on it, then the only thing you can do is to lose the list, obviously. If you keep it around, it becomes depressing. I've done a fair amount of volunteering. I've looked for opportunities. VA Hospital has a volunteer program, and they had a drive-through flu clinic in October, and I helped with that. I helped direct traffic and help the wonderful nurses over there. And I asked them if that was a resume entry, if I could put that down now as a traffic director, and they said, yeah, you're qualified. So that's my resume entry. I've hooked up with an ESL tutoring program that is now going out over Zoom. And I'm tutoring 3 people in conversational English. 2 Mexicans, one in Fallon and one in Fernley, and then a Brazilian fellow in Sao Paulo, Brazil. So I talk to Brazil twice a week, and we're doing conversational English, and that becomes fun, and we find things to work on their pronunciation mainly. And I have another, let's see if I can pull up the other slide for you. Hold on just one second. You can't see that yet, can you?
Not yet, but just go ahead. You should be able to screen share.
Yeah, hold on. Okay, here it is. Oh. Okay, now it's screen share. I can't get my screen share working.
Well, Bob, I'll just take a moment to tell those listening on Facebook and YouTube that we're glad you're here with us. We know you can hear us, and we're thrilled that you're here. Bob, just give me the thumbs up when you're ready to go forward, and you could take it away from there. Okay. And for those of you who's here in the Zoom call with us today, I'm glad you made your way here. We make it easy to get to. Just to give you the heads up, we're going to try the same thing for Christmas. And this time, if you haven't, or next time, if you haven't made your way to the Zoom room itself, make sure ahead of time that you know exactly how to get here. We make it real easy so that you can see us and hear us. And if you are, if you're on Facebook and YouTube, we'll just let you know we're glad that you're here with us and hearing everything that we're saying. I now see a picture of Tux on the screen. So Bob,
what I wanted to say about this is I'm really a little amazed and impressed with how much company a cat can be.
Oh, yes.
This is Tuxedo, about 1.5 years old, from the Humane Society. And they didn't tell me when I adopted him, he's actually a juvenile delinquent out of rehab. And he can get into more mischief.
But he's much better than the 2 you had before.
I'm not sure. We'll see. But I go, it's definitely love-hate. He knows that everything I have on my wall basically belongs on the floor. And so he's able to scratch pictures down, notes down, anything you can think of on my bulletin board down onto the desk and the floor. And so I go back and forth between appreciating him and wanting to take him back to the Humane Society and recycling and get another one. But anyway,
Put him in recycling.
just having a cat for a single person is really a lot of company, and I really appreciate Tux. So that's Tux. And see if I had anything else I wanted to. I get out a fair amount. Some people, I think, overdo staying home, and I'm convinced that being outside with someone and maintaining your distance, and especially if there's a breeze blowing, I think that's totally safe. And so I'll meet friends at Virginia Lake, and we go for a walk and talk. We'll walk around the lake and catch up and keep our 6-foot distance and whatnot. So I get out a fair amount. I don't feel cooped up like some people do. So that's just a little picture of my keeping on and how I keep myself going on. And I'm sure you've found some other unique, creative ways to keep yourself entertained and from going crazy. So let me stop talking about myself now and see if anybody has something to share about what they've found that helps them.
Bob, I think if somebody has hobbies, especially a hobby that you can do by yourself,
yes,
that's a good thing. I know I quilt, and whenever this first started back in the spring, and my husband and I made the decision that we were going to stay home pretty much all the time. I have a little quilt shop back behind my house, and oh my goodness, did I knock out the quilts. So, but it takes your mind off of it, and you're not worrying about continuously getting sick but there's a lot of cabin fever. You can't get past that completely.
I've gotten some mileage out of jigsaw puzzles too. I forgot to mention that.
Yes, I know someone who is doing that as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Anybody else come up with something
I do ancestry.
Oh, what?
Ancestry.
Can't hear you.
Family searching, family history.
Oh.
History.
Genealogy, Bob.
Oh,
is what she's talking about. Yes. Definitely do a lot of that. Yeah.
I'm addicted to it.
Oh.
Wonderful.
Yes, Bob. I also I'm thank the Lord for genealogy because it keeps me busy.
Wow.
But also, Sydney, I was wanting to ask, we've got 3 new members that just joined. Can they introduce themselves and maybe tell them a little bit about what we're doing?
Maybe if we could just finish this conversation, it'll just be a minute or two.
Sure. No, go ahead.
Because we're right in the middle of it. So does anybody else come up with something interesting as a keeping on activity that you'd like to share? Nobody?
We just listen to music too. With my mother-in-law, we do we switch it up with music and other things, or we go for walks or drive, just drive, basically looking at cemeteries, just driving in general just to get out. That's what we do,
That reminds me of St. Louis and the Italian cemetery in St. Louis. The practice was to take a picture of the deceased and mount it behind clear porcelain on the headstone. So as you walked around, you could see a picture of everybody buried there.
Wow.
So interesting.
Mm-hmm. That is cool.
Else?
I know during the pandemic.
Would you like to introduce the new people?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Just in answering your question that you've thrown out there to everybody, I know when, or what I enjoy or what I found myself doing during the pandemic, just to keep myself going on, is now finally have the opportunity to go through the family photos. When my mother passed away a couple of years ago, I not just ended up with a whole lot of photos, but there was just tons of my photos that went back that I just kind of put into place. And then I finally got everything all together, and it has just, it's a mind blowing experience when you start going through all your old photographs. And it's not something you really have the opportunity to do unless you are at a pause and you have that time. So going over old family photos has helped me keep going on through the pandemic.
Yeah.
There have been many new people that have joined us here in the Zoom room, and people are going to come and go in and out throughout the Zoom room. There's also people live on Facebook and YouTube that are listening to us, but unfortunately can't see us this time around. Maybe we'll have that little bug fixed by Christmas and you'll be able to see us. I tell you, for the sake of time, let's go ahead and JD, I'm going to turn that right back on you and say, will you introduce yourself to us and tell us a little bit more about the Burleson Family Association? No, well, the Burleson Family Research Association. Where's the word Burleson? Where's the word research in that glorious virtual background behind you? I don't see research.
Right behind his head. Thank you.
It says Burleson Family Association 2020, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well,
long story. Go ahead, JD.
What group? Oh, I know. I think I get. What group, JD, do you represent, and what can you tell us about how that helps you keep going on? And why don't you just keep going on into what you can tell us more about this Burleson Family Research Association?
I can fill up the whole 3 hours if you're interested in Burleson genealogy. But I can see all of you are not. No, the screenshot I've got behind me shows my inexperience. I wear 2 hats. I'm the historian for the Burleson Family Association, and I did videos with all the officers and board members for the association. And my son did this marvelous drawing, and I don't know how to get it off my screen. So next time I get him over, he's going to have to show me how to get rid of it and how to put it back when I need it. But that just shows my inexperience on the computer. I'm old school, and if it wasn't for sons and now grandsons, I wouldn't know how to do anything on the computer, basically. So
maybe your son can help us get video onto our amazing live streams that are going on right now. So
I asked
welcome that help.
Well, I asked them today, and they have never worked with live streaming of Facebook. I do know people at my church does it every week. I just usually watch, but I can check and see if I can find out for you if some of them can give me some help. Like I say, I am the president of the Burleson Family Research Group. It's a group of Burlesons in Stanley County, North Carolina, that got together back in 1995 and had a Burleson reunion. And we had a member that sent out 400 and some mailings to all the Burlesons in North Carolina. And we met on Morrill Mountain, and we had a great reunion for an afternoon. And out of that reunion, we started meeting every week in the public library in Stanley County. And we get together and we talk Burleson. Now that might sound strange, but that's literally what we do. I found out that in the town where I live until I was 45 years old, I only knew my brothers and first cousins. I didn't know there was another Burleson in the world besides Tommy Burleson that played for North Carolina State. I don't know how many's old enough to remember him, but I said, where in the world did he come from? But anyway, I asked my mother about my great-grandfather, and she didn't know. My father had passed. So anyway, long story short, I ended up in Stanley County, where my grandfather was born and raised, and started. And in Albemarle, back when they had the yellow pages and the phone books, there was 3 pages of Burlesons. So if you're one of 5 names in Albemarle, you're either a Burleson or connected to a Burleson. So we had a lot of people to work with, and we started meeting, and everybody started bringing information in on their families, photos, obituaries, all different types of documentation. And I was lucky enough to be the only one with a computer because of my son. And I became the storehouse of all that information. And out of that is gone into 25 years now of me gathering stuff on my database. And we put out 4 newsletters a year. Our group does. And the newsletters just tells what our group is doing. And right now with COVID, we're not able to get together. So really, we've kind of stymied in what we're able to do. But my big passion right now is repairing tombstones, abandoned cemeteries. We've got a lot of abandoned cemeteries in Stanley County. And that's how I met Annette. And she wanted to know if I could fix or clean up and repair her great-grandfather, who was a Civil War veteran. And out of that, I went to Frederick, Maryland to a seminar on how to repair, clean, level up, and fix tombstones.
Wow.
And this last month, I spent the month basically trying to figure out if I could do it. And I think it turned out to be pretty good. But out of that came April Chester, came into our group, and she came up with the name for this new projects of ours. And we called it Burleson's Keepers. And her daughter, who's very talented, is she around? You're muted, but anyway, her daughter grew me a logo with it's a tombstone with an emblem that says, with a key and a key going through the lock. It says Burleson's Keepers. And we're gonna start a portion of our newsletter every month about the Burleson Keepers, the tombstones we work on, and then Stories in Stone, which Annette, she might not know it yet, but she's gonna write me up a story in stones about her great-grandfather.
No. Give me a panic attack.
All of this is a work in progress.
Oh Lord, is it?
And but that's just what I'm into.
He did an absolutely awesome job on my great-grandparents' tombstone. Don't let him fool you. He did.
When I share the screen, I might show some pictures of it.
Well, you should.
Okay.
I'm proud of it. I'm proud of you, JD.
Well,
we're distant cousins, but I'm still proud of it. I do have some Burleson blood in my veins. My 3rd great-grandmother was a Burleson, and her father, David Burleson, my 4th great-grandfather, was the brother to JD's 4th great-grandfather, Isaac. So Isaac and my David were brothers. So that's how I get into the Burleson craziness. I'm picking. I'm proud. They did a great job, and they also cleaned the cemetery and leveled it. You just wouldn't believe the awesome job that they did. That was their first undertaking, so they did great. I'll shut up now, JD.
No, I enjoyed it. I don't know if everybody else did. But, Also, Kay's better half sitting back there behind her, Clarence, also comes from David.
What now?
He also comes from David Sr., David Burleson.
Where? Which one?
Behind Kay.
Back here.
Whoa, hey.
Back here.
David Burleson and Ursula Winterford, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's okay, right. Those were my fourth great grandparents, and his probably too.
Like I said, when Cindy contacted me, I don't think she was much interested in genealogy, but me and Kay kind of took over this, and we don't really want to monopolize it, but that's what we are interested in.
It's been an amazing journey, JD, just what all that your organization, and let's be truthful, your organization, you know, yes, we're all Burlesons, but you are a research organization in North Carolina, and Kay and Clarence are a Burleson Family Association, a organization of 501c3, and they're in Texas. So I am blown away with the professionalism of all this genealogy that you have. And you're talking about, you know, me, you're talking about my people, you're talking about my heritage.
Your tribe.
You know, and it's amazing and it's addicting and it's mesmerizing.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed
I totally agree
every
with all
bit
of
of it.
Mm-hmm.
Of the last couple of weeks or week or so. This is a amazing journey. And I know that April, I think, has only been, am I right, from the article in the Chronicle?
Just a couple of months. My research started years ago before I joined Ancestry, before I even knew Ancestry was around, and through relatives, because my father actually died when I was about 5, and my little brother was 3 months old. And my mother remarried almost immediately. And our stepdad was not a nice person. He was a sailor that believed in drinking and beating his stepkids. And anyways, we ended up stationed in Fallon, Nevada at the Naval Air Station, and grew up most of my time there because he retired out.
How do you exit out of the whole thing, Randy? I'm not interested in it.
Go ahead, April, as you were saying.
Okay, anyways, I got out. Eventually my parents ended up, my stepdad, my mom kicked me out. And at that time, I was 18 and finishing high school. I decided I was going to find my dad's family, no matter what it took. And so I remembered my grandmother's kind of whispering my dad's name, Paul Burleson. And it kept sticking and making me wonder, I got to find out what this name is, who this person is. And there's many other things. I wrote it in my article about the Chronicles. But anyways, long story short, an uncle on my mom's side had actually played in a honky-tonk band with my dad. And he came to talk to me because he was dying of cancer and asked me, is there anything I can do for you? And I said, yes, I want to know everything I can about my dad, since you told me you knew him and played in this band. So they went and researched a bunch of stuff, got where my dad was buried in Pacheco, California, and all kinds of information for me and sent it to me and wrote down stories. And then I started writing to these abstract companies at the time, asking if they knew of the names, knew the Burleson names, because I was like JD, I looked everywhere, wherever I traveled, I never saw the Burleson name anywhere. And I just kept thinking, you know, they've got to be somewhere that I haven't been. Well, we never traveled to the South when I was a kid. We traveled through the Northwest, Michigan and New York, where my mom was from, and my stepdad, but we never went down south. So long story short, I'm sitting at work one day and I'm talking to this couple that I taught with, and they were both from Texas, and their names were Monty and Sherry Adams. And I said to them, I'm going to find my dad's family. I'm going to start this. I've been getting little bits and pieces of information. And I found out that he was possibly from Texas or Oklahoma. And they said, well, what was his last name? And I said, Burleson. And they were like, what? Girl, we used to live in Burleson, Texas. And so those two people started my journey. And so I got all kinds of information and eventually joined Ancestry and just started researching. I've been kind of in and out with raising kids and teaching and just all kinds of stuff. And then just recently I decided, okay, I've been retired now for 9 years. The COVID's here and I need to settle down and quit doing 50,000 things and start doing this research again. So then I joined both associations. I thought I joined both to begin with. I thought they were together and then found out they're separate but together. And that's all it is. I've been just learning so much about the Burlesons, and I feel like I found family roots, and that has been probably the most important thing to me, more than I can even put into words, because of everything in life right now. To just know that I have family, that I'm not this person that was kicked out, when I turned 18 and forgotten about by my stepdad and my mom. My stepdad's still alive, who I don't talk to, but my mom passed away several years ago. So it's been really good to find the Burlesons, and I love talking Burleson.
Thank you, April. I'd like to take a minute now. I see Richard Hill just joined in, and I've heard that name, but I don't really know how and I think he must have just stepped away. Also, Havis McDowell or McDonald? McDonald.
He needs to unmute.
I'm sorry.
He needs to unmute.
There's Havis.
Hey, Havis. He's got 3 sons that under his wife. He's always telling me I'm not a Burleson, but my wife was, and I got 3 sons that's in that line, so that's why he's interested. Rosemary Adams, she just joined. She is a cousin to Annette, and also a great-granddaughter of the Stone that I've been working on for the last month. She's also been a member of our group for, I'm not going to say how many years because she's not that old, but
Rosemary.
Also,
oh my goodness, JD, good Lord, who is that on Maurice's phone? Good.
I don't know her.
Is that my sister in North Carolina? Oh, it's so good to see you. That is my sister.
I didn't know her, so I was going to get ready to.
And then Richard Hill, I know, is a friend. He's in real estate here in Reno. I think he's coming and going in and out on the screen. Christy, it's so good to see you. Can't hear you though, but it's good to see you.
Who's the lady in the bottom that says Reno L. Rain?
Lorraine, unless you go ahead and unmute your microphone and speak for yourself, I'll just go ahead and tell you that this is Lorraine. She is an absolute amazing human being. She is also here in Reno. She's has a love for the Hawaiian Islands, and I am just, I assume if she wanted to speak for herself, she would have unmuted that microphone. I think she sent me a text here about 15 minutes ago that she was heading for the turkey and eating that kind of thing. She might be a little preoccupied, but unmute your microphone, Lorraine, and speak for yourself if you want to. And JD, I know that you know what you're doing. You have a plan and you know what's keeping us moving forward. But I want to make sure that when you, as you move us forward, that you talk about DNA. With everybody that's on this call, I would say it's just a mix of half and half. Maybe half of us are Burleson or kin in some way, and the other half aren't. We're on different sides of the country. There's, I'm looking at a couple of screens from North Carolina. Over here to Reno. I don't think we have anybody in California, which is usually we always have some representative from, or somebody from California is always here. But anyway, we're spread out all over the place. Of course, we're live on YouTube. Of course, we're live on Facebook. So just, I want to make sure that we bring this topic up so that everybody understands how this DNA fits into you, regardless of what your last name is or what family you're in. And there's a lot of confusion about DNA. It's kind of, people don't want to have anything to do with getting tested. And, there's stigmas and this, or, there's misconceptions or something. But I just want to make sure in your plan that you tell us more about DNA and get us excited about it. Maybe we can talk about it at Christmas.
Tell us about DNA, JD.
Okay, well, I'll get into the program that we had planned. I know I went off script there, but you did ask me about what I'm doing, so that's what I'm doing. Can you let me share?
You most certainly can share screen. I'm going to make sure that you should be able to do that. And I'll just talk a little bit while you're pulling it up. And when we can see it, I will stop talking. I could tell that you're working on it. Just noting that those that are listening to us live on YouTube and Facebook, they can't see what you're talking about. So make sure you tell us all about what we're looking at. Go ahead. We see it.
Can you see it now?
We do.
Yeah.
Great.
Looks like my dad.
Okay. Let me make this full screen.
No, not yet.
JD is showing us the website of the Burleson Family Research Group. And the website is www.bfrg.info. Did I get that right, JD?
Yes.
Okay, so you can find most of what he's looking at on the website.
Yes, like Cindy said, it's very easy. It's Burleson Family Research Group.info. It's not a .com or a .org or anything. It's .info, and this is the home page. As you can see, it's the crest and the stone of my ancestor that we did. And like I was trying to explain, our objectives when we formed this in 1995-96.
How you doing?
Was to bring members of the Burleson family together and document and research our heritage. And for those that don't know, the Burlesons have a great heritage. Starting out in Suffield, Connecticut, which was the Massachusetts Bay Colony then in 1664. Then they came down through the South, through Lunenburg, Virginia, and most of them came into North Carolina, Rocky River area. And then from Rocky River, they went across the country. They migrated with everything else after the Revolution. And so that's kind of what we've did. And what we're trying to do is just share all this information with anybody that's interested. You don't have to be a Burleson. You just have to be interested in the Burlesons and history. Let's see. This is my great, like she said, fourth great grandfather, Isaac Burleson, who was in the North Carolina, Captain Charles Polk's company in the North Carolina militia in the American Revolution. And this is a picture of a group that we got together and cleaned up this cemetery, and we put a fence around it. I'm sorry. Okay.
Go ahead. We can hear you.
Somebody said something. But this was in 2004, I think. But for those of you that don't know, there's a American Society of the Sons of the American Revolution that have chapters all across the country. And if you descend from a patriot or a loyalist that that served in the Revolution, you're eligible to join. And this was the Burlington chapter that came and did the honor guard for the unveiling of Isaac Stone. And this is the certificate that certifies that John Douglas Burleson is a member under Isaac Burleson. And what this does, it gives all my grandchildren and great-grandchildren a path in whenever they become interested. Right now, I can't get them interested because they don't want me to start talking genealogy because they just say it's boring. But one of these days, they'll be old enough and they'll get interested. But this will give them the path to get in because I've already done the legwork. Now, this is Paul Cisco. Through DNA, if you got Burleson blood, you come from the Vikings. And I thought that was neat, to say the least. I know they didn't have a real good name back in the day. They were kind of a mean group. But I think that's where the Burlesons got a lot of their spirit or their whatever they got. I mean, my wife says I have a temper and all that. But I'd like to share a little bit of a video that we did at our last Burleson Research Group's reunion. We have been doing these reunions every year for the last 25 years, but this year we wasn't able to. So I've got to figure out how to get to the video. Y'all.
Well, we of course can see it if we've made it here to the Zoom room. But if you're just hearing our audio, it's this is a beautiful video, and the speaker speaking about DNA is amazing. Maybe we could ask him to come join us and around Christmas time. So
can y'all see my screen?
We can see it. Everything is good with what we can see. So you just do what you need to do. And I know that when everyone is able to hear the video, it's be very insightful. It opens up with a beautiful scene hovering over a place in Burleson reunion. And JD, go ahead and tell us what we're seeing on the screen.
This is the DAV building at Burleson Square in Stanley County, Albemarle, North Carolina.
Maximize your screen, JD.
I'm sorry?
Maximize your screen.
Oh, okay, sure.
It's a little bitty.
And these are all the people that was at our reunion last year. Not all of them, but some of them. And this goes into Paul Cisco's talk on DNA. And I haven't been able to contact Paul in the last week or so, but I'm almost positive that he'll be glad to come and be a presenter at our Christmas Zoom meeting. And
what's so amazing about that is he is he's not a Burleson himself, but I think it explains he does have ties to the Burlesons. But
Sydney, let me clarify. He is a Cisco, but he found out they was a little something in the work. He is a Burleson through father, son, father, son. He doesn't know exactly, and I can't really explain exactly how the Burleson, the Y DNA that he talks about is father, son, father, son. And if you've got the Burleson DNA then even if your name is not Burleson, like Cisco, which came from Francisco, which he thought he was, but he found out he's really a Burleson. And I'd like to turn this over to Jim, if he's still with us, and let him talk a little bit about that if he would like.
Hi.
Hey, Jim.
Everybody okay?
Yeah.
Well,
Are you?
Let me see if I can push buttons and get where I am. Anyway, my younger brother, who unfortunately could not join us tonight, his mother-in-law got a pulmonary embolism and is in the hospital, and he ran off with her. But Dave is a retired lieutenant colonel from the Air Force and got his degree in international politics, got his master's in history. So he was a history professor after he retired, became vice president of a college down in Las Cruces, New Mexico. As a gift for my father, he did a genealogy. It was fairly rudimentary, went out about 6 generations and wasn't largely supported with documents. And my dad was happy to have it. And I didn't really think about it much until about 1.5 years ago and thought, well, I'm going to play the game too. And first thing I did was looked up online, and I found Burleson Family Research Group and talked to JD about my problem. And my problem is my dad ran away from Spruce Pine, North Carolina to join the Air Force with a forged birth certificate. His dad had passed, and then his grandfather passed. His grandfather was the first police chief in Spruce Pine, North Carolina, who did not know who his father was. That got me going, and I did come across an old brown and white photo of Asa Sylvester Burleson's mother, Emmeline Bathsheba Weatherman Burleson, with 2 of her daughters-in-law, and he was kind enough to post it on his website. And one of the persons who commented, and I don't know if you remember this, Annette.
Yes.
You commented on it. We got to talking, and she says, well, I don't know too much about the people, but I can tell you who owns the photo. And that was a Debbie Wise Denton, who turned out to be my 3rd cousin. And we talk every week. And I later, just recently, found out that she is also cousin to Kay Burleson, who's over sitting in front of the desk where Clarence is at. So we're related that way. But it kind of led us down a road. And there's a lot of mythology when you start with families. And April, I'm sure you found this out, that people will tell you stories, and the worst stories are the oft-told story.
Yes.
That's how you go from the fib to the lie. Well, at any rate, we started to drill down, and the fib in my life is that my grandfather had been born from a Yankee soldier had raped his mama. Well, he was born in 1874, and what do we know about 1874? There ain't no Yankee soldiers. That's gone. So on we went, and I told that story back to JD, and JD said, well, you know, it's a woeful story, and he and I chased down several myths, and we threw up our hands and said, we're going to bring in a geneticist, to help solve what's going on. And our geneticist of choice was not just Paul Cisco, it's Dr. Paul Cisco, who's absolutely brilliant, and you're going to love him. Cisco comes from France, not Spain. And when the Ciscos took to hiding out in England, they got hooked up with Burlesons. And then they all jumped on several ships and headed our way. And today I'm a lifelong policeman. And what I would call that group back then is a gang. That gang included Shipmans, Kuykendalls, Gages, Burlesons. They all hung around together. And instead of lowriders going low and slow down the streets of LA, they were in Suffield, Connecticut, and they were coming down to Lunenburg, Virginia, in covered wagons. They weren't quite up to speed yet for lowriders. So they all hung around, and part of that hanging around means intermarrying. They were wicked, wicked souls. Well, so Paul gets turned over my case, and he convinces me to take a test, much like Texas Buddha back there in the background behind the desk. Clarence took the big Y DNA test. Well, when you take the Y DNA test, you quickly find out with social media, DNA, and the internet, you can't hide. We're going to find you. So we found out that I was not actually Burleson by birth, that a family member named Glasscock had jumped the very low fences that they had in North Carolina at the time and got with my great-great-grandmother. And then came from that, Paul was able to determine, going up that line for 400 years, mine wind up being Glasscock, like Clarence goes up for 400 years and it's Burleson. Well, this cousin, Debbie Wise Denton, who's a wise, wise soul, said, well, fear not, you're Burleson about 8 different ways. She was wrong. I'm Burleson 17 different ways. And that's through the miracle of restoring family lines using females. So I wound up in all of these different paths, winding up coming back to the same Burleson patriarchy that all of these other guys were. So you have to follow my path through mitochondrial and different paths. And Paul got me so far to 4 neighboring brothers named Glasscock had surrounded the family of my great-great-great-great-grandmother, jumped another low fence, and they had kids. But which one was it to be? Then they turned me on to my big sis, Paula Denson, who works with me and JD and with Kay and with Clarence. And she said, well, I have found out through DNA Painter and triangulation, different methods of manipulating the data and the positions that you are in trees of who's the daddy? Who's the daddy? And it turns out it was a David Glasscock. So that all evolved into JD had to get me involved with Burleson Family Association with Clarence and Kay and Paula and the whole gang. And I got the best drug you can get, information, manipulated quality information. Yeah. From that, we developed our own little research group that I go out and find out, and I'll use Cindy as an example, who we just started with this week. Who is Cindy Burleson? Well, you ask her, she doesn't know. Well, we took her dad and her granddad's information, and her granddad's information was iffy. Well, through researching various databases, search sites specific to genealogy, we found out the real dates of birth, etc., of her granddad, worked it on up, and we got her all the way up to who we call Aaron of Georgia. And there's very few of those because we don't know who that guy is. So all of a sudden, the information that we want includes Cindy's DNA. And because her father has DNA that goes Burleson to Burleson, male uninterrupted for a couple of 100 years, we really want that DNA. And we will glean tons and tons of information. But the process of our little group, I find out where your proper position is on trees, and then I start to attach sources to it. If there's documentation, I turn it over to JD, who has the database. He's king of the database. So he looks and finds out how can we marry proper position to personalities that we already have known in the database. Once that's cooked up, now we turn that portion of the recipe over to Paula Denson, who starts to triangulate and paint and get the sequence of your DNA done. Then she turns it over to our 4th partner, who is Denise Sprode, and she does the actual genetics, all of your ACGTs and put in the proper order. And then she takes that information, and we have now created a Burleson project in WikiTree. And we've got about 270 members so far that we have the JED matches, and we do side-by-side comparisons. Who else relates to these personalities? And we go find you. So like my previous life as a police chief, I just dearly loved in my previous life of kicking in your door, getting in your stuff. Well, now I get to do it with your DNA.
Awesome.
So now having combined all of these assets together and the new technology, we communicate that back to Clarence, who's the president of the Burleson Family Association, organizes us and says, we're now the research group of the BFA. And it's our mission to go out and find who your great-great-grandfather was. Sitting at my couch watching TV today, watching football, my little laptop in my lap, looking down between plays, I kind of cook up. Who do I want to look up today? Well, I know JD has a line that includes the Hopkins family that eventually gets to the Jamestown, Mayflower folk. So I start to look for where JD and I have a Hopkins in common. And I go up 2 or 3 generations, and I wish our priest was still here. Is he around?
Don't think so.
Yeah, Father William had to leave, so he's
Well,
not with us.
I'd like you to communicate this story to him. Just sitting this morning, I go up a couple of generations past Hopkins, and I come out to a Robert Hunt. Robert Hunt was the very first minister who came with the Jamestown colony when the settlement was done, and he performed the very first prayers of Thanksgiving at Jamestown.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
He's with Anglican priest, and he comes all the way down to several of us Burlesons. Now, I'm a 66-year-old man, retired 20 years. I play golf when it's pretty, and when it's not, I come in and I watch ball games and I do genealogy. Now, I encourage all of you to come play with us. We're a lot of fun. That's the end of my sermon.
Well, thank you, Jim. That's what I wanted to share about DNA. It involves everybody, and you'd be surprised who you might be kin to that you don't have no idea. Now, I'd like to show you a little bit. Let me make this full screen. Through the Burleson Family Research Group, we are incorporated as a nonprofit, and under that we have a publishing company. And the publishing company is the Burleson Heritage Publishing. And we have published a lot of our research for the last 25 years. This first book by John Hoyle Burleson starts with a study of the early Burleson history. And if you're all interested in how we got started, this book takes you through it, all the way to the Revolutionary War and a little bit past. Isaac Burleson Sr. is a book that I did. And it is more, if you don't come from Isaac, you're probably not interested in this book. It does have some Burleson history, but it's more of the descendants of Isaac Burleson Sr. We also did, Donald K. Burleson did Burleson Family Heritage, and this takes our Burleson heritage back to England. And we don't really have a connection back there. Besides, we know the first documented family in America was Edward Burleson. And there is an Edward Burleson in England that's the right age, and that could be father-son, but we don't really have the proof to say that yet. Another book that I did was Ulysses Shakespeare Burleson, and you notice the spelling. I spell everything in my database without the Y, but there's a lot of Burlesons in North Carolina that use the Y, And a grandson that asked me to do this book asked me to use the Y because his grandfather always did. I don't know if you can see this man sitting in front of this first Burleson school, but he was the teacher, and that's U.S. Burleson. And this is all of his descendants and all the history of U.S. And like I say, if you don't come from these lines, you're probably not interested, but it's got a lot of Burleson history in it. And John Wesley Burleson is Rosemary's Adams that's on our call today. This is her ancestor in the Burlesons. And Cindy asked me to tell how to join. If you would like to join the BFRG, and we have 4 different levels, and I only showed one level. If you want to know how to join at other levels, you need to go to the webpage, bfrg.info, and it'll tell you all about it. But for $10, you get 4 newsletters a year, and you can keep up with all the research and all the stuff that we're doing. And if you go to the webpage, there's PayPal if you want to use that, or you can mail a check to the Burleson Family Research Group, care of Nancy Burleson, and this is her address. And like I say, I am J.D. Burleson. Any questions, you can email me here, bfrginfo@gmail.com or 336-870-4838. Cindy, if I took up more time than you allotted.
Oh, this is wonderful. This is wonderful. JD is in North Carolina, and I know that we're going to hear from Kay, who is in Texas.
Yes.
So there's 2 substantial Burleson organizations, one in North Carolina, the research group, Burleson Family Research Association, and then Kay is going to speak about the Burleson Family Association. We have about an hour, but should we take a small break with some restful music, or and I should have the rolls of toilet paper up behind me in the virtual. But if you need to take a break, feel free to take a break and come back at the same time. Kay, if you're ready to just go ahead.
There we
go. So Kay, you decide. Are you ready to go forward, or do you want to take a little bit of a break?
Well, I'm fine. I'll just leave it up to everybody that's out there, if they want to take 5 minutes and come back, that'll be great. Or otherwise we'll just move on.
Okay, sounds good. The Burleson Family Association.
Right. Okay, can I get a share screen?
Yes, let's make sure you have the credit. You should be able to, no problem. Try it and see.
See if it'll come up.
Were there any questions for JD before we move to the association in Texas?
I just kind of wish that we could get more people to DNA test, and I think it'd be interesting to find more people that are willing.
It is a fascinating topic.
It is.
I would hope that we would like to look at it. The thing that I like about Cisco is that it's so scientific, and he explains it to people instead of it being a big mystery. He was a great presenter, and you can see on the video on the Burleson Family Research Group's website. You can see his video there just to get a flavor of what we're talking about. But I would like to see us discuss this further.
I recently did 23andMe, and I've been on Ancestry for a little bit, but 23andMe seems more like shows both relatives, both sides, my maternal and paternal. sharing the same cousins. And Ancestry doesn't really show that on mine. It's just kind of different.
I'll go ahead and, oh, sorry about that. Go ahead. My bad. Go ahead.
I'd like to address that. The 23andMe you'll find is more health issues in your DNA. Do you have a father or a brother that's living?
My brother passed away, but my dad tested. His mom was a Burleson. So my dad tested.
Okay.
Hey, JD, let me interject real quick.
Sure.
Whether you take 23andMe, Family Finder, or Ancestry, the next step is crucial, is you have to upload those results to GEDCOM. Once you're in GEDCOM, you're in the worldwide Ethernet final repository warehouse where we can all get to you. It's universal and it's free. So
I could figure it out.
GEDmatch is it GEDCOM or GEDmatch?
Well, GEDCOM is basically the super file.
Okay.
Then they have GEDFile that trickles down to groupings. And then GEDmatch is a population of people who match you.
Oh, okay. So GEDCOM do it. Okay.
If you'll just look up GEDmatch, it'll get you where you need to go.
Okay. Because I think GEDmatch. Yes, GEDmatch. I'm pretty sure it was GEDmatch.
Save that number. Keep it in somewhere in your computer under your pillow, because that's important.
Right. I did. My parents and I and a few others.
In the state of Nevada, we have the ability through the Healthy Nevada Project to have your DNA tested free, or through the scope of the grant.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So for those listening from Nevada today, through Healthy Nevada Project, you can get your DNA.
I'd like to share something about having my DNA tested. I have had an identical twin sister, Jeanette. I'm Annette and she was Jeanette, and I lost her to cancer 3 years ago. And she has some children, and I'm really close to them, and they're close to me. Well, I had my DNA done on 23andMe for a while. I knew my results, but her daughter, Amanda, went on 23andMe, had hers done, and she was at my house one night, and I said, "Did you get the results back?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, click it up and pull up 23andMe and let's see what's going on." She pulled it up and she said, "Oh my God, Aunt Ned, you show up as my mother."
Because it's identical twins,
yeah,
right?
And only identical twins can that happen.
Right. Share the
I pulled up mine real quick, and she shows up as my daughter. So I was like, that can only happen with absolutely identical twins.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
That can happen. That was quite a story. And I wish I had Jeanette do it and really screw up 23andMe.
Right.
They would be going like, what? These two women have the same thing. But I think I thought that gave me interest you.
For sure.
It would be easy for people to make mistakes in their family trees that way too. With those DNA results coming up.
And some surprises.
Yeah.
That's happened on the Roland side. I think there was a couple, at least one I know that I won't go into, but she found out something utterly shattering. So it can be good and it can be bad.
Well, that's one thing that Paul Cisco always says in his talks. When you do take the DNA, you have to be prepared to accept whatever you get. The bad with the good. And you're not always going to like what you get. Sometimes it does happen. Okay, Cindy, are we ready to talk about family associations?
Yes.
Okay, good enough. Well, I'm Kay Burleson. I think all of you probably know me by now. when Cindy first asked me to talk, because there were going to be people here that were not part of the Burleson family, she said, well, you know, maybe we could just talk about family associations in general, and that was a good idea. So I just wanted to point out a couple of things. The Family Association is an organization formed by people who share a common ancestor or surname. Well, that's pretty logical, right? And just as a note, remember, as far as everyone knows, we're a nice, normal family. Ha ha ha, okay? And in this, now I've got, you guys hang on one second. I've got all the people in the gallery here are just all over my screen. Okay, so if you're thinking about forming a family association, if you're not already in Burleson, and we don't really need another Burleson Family Association, but just be prepared that it is very time consuming. It can be expensive to start and maintain one of these organizations. They're not money makers by any means. It's volunteer work. Nobody's going to pay you a dime to do all of this. And you quite often run into lack of interest. Most of you can probably remember maybe when you were younger, except for you, Miss Matlock, you're pretty young. But back in the day, you know, your parents used to drag you to the family reunion once a year or something like that. And they always say, oh, we got to go to the family reunion, and everybody went. It was just the way things were. Unfortunately, that's changed over the last, probably 50 years or so.
It has changed.
Yeah, and people just, they just don't have the interest in it. And now technology is responsible, I think, for a lot of that too. That you don't have to go and meet your family somewhere and talk to them and visit with them. You can do it on Zoom. You can do it on the phone. You can do it on, your iPhone with FaceTime. And you can get all this information on the internet, whether it's right or wrong, but you can get it, right? So a lack of interest in really getting into and working like a dog for no money in a family association just does not appeal to everybody. Okay, now, you're looking at some exceptions here. But on the positive side of having a family association or group, it can be extremely rewarding. It can be very educational because of things that you learn, particularly in the areas of history, genealogy, DNA. It can be historically significant. That could be in finding something about your family, or actually finding something that was important in the history of our country, or maybe even in your state or your community. Things maybe that you didn't know, and you're, oh, my family, my great granddad was first mayor of blah, blah, blah. That's historically significant. And then, of course, the main thing here is just family. It is just knowing and meeting and conversing and getting to love and care for people that you had no clue existed prior to getting into this. So there are definitely upsides, a lot of pros, but then, always want you to be aware of the cons as well. Now, these are some pictures that were taken from Alabama. This was our 2019 reunion, because we didn't have one in 2020. Of course, we had to cancel it because of COVID. We're doing our best to reschedule for one in 2021, but we don't know if that's going to happen either. So we're just kind of hanging in, waiting. We eat a lot, and it's nice, you go and you just sit down at the table and you look around and you go, oh, I share DNA with all these people. And I didn't know how much Burleson DNA I shared till just recently. But anyway, These people, this group went over to the archives and did a lot of research work one day. And several people took quite a few tours of the area that were historically significant to the Burleson family. And there's JD hiding back there in the back. He led most of those tours himself, was a tour guide. So, you know, you get together and you do things as well as just talk. This particular item, I mentioned earlier in the program, you know, that I'm a quilter, and when I was talking to Bob. And this was a quilt that I made to be sold at auction for that reunion in 2019 in Alabama. Wow. Was a Civil War quilt. And it ticked all those boxes. It's a rewarding thing for me. It was historically significant because around the edge of the quilt, unfortunately, I'm sorry it's not large enough you can see, are embroidered all the names of the Burleson Civil War soldiers that I could find in my research. So, and that was educational for me to do all that research as well. And it was family oriented because it went to, was auctioned off and went to a Burleson family member. I talked with her not too long ago. See, I don't talk much anymore. You would think I do, but I don't. So my throat gets really dry. But I talked to her a few months ago, and we talked about the quilt, and I asked her, I said, well, what are you doing with it? And she said, well, I just couldn't make myself use it. She said, you know, it's such a treasure. And she said, I have it folded up, and I keep it in a glass display case. So that was really rewarding. You know, I felt very gratified that she found it to be such a wonderful treasure. It'll be passed down in her family for years and years and years. And the name of the quilt was Burleson Bravery. And that's why I have that up there, my grandson knew that. So we participated in that little fundraising operation there. We had people that went on tours around Decatur, Alabama, where we had this. And this was a big old home that had belonged to a Burleson family years in the past. So they all got together, or the ones there, they posed on the front porch. And then this one over here, I don't know, there were a group of the Burleson ladies that wandered off and went around the back of the house, and they're, I guess you would just call it snooping, looking in the window there. And either that or maybe they're thinking of breaking and entering. I'm not sure what was on their mind, but they had to go take a little closer look at things.
I share the skill set with those ladies.
Snooping or breaking and entering? Which one?
No, we're just snooping and looking around. That's all. So
just snooping.
Yeah.
see what was in there. And I don't blame them a bit. If I had been there, I probably would have done the same thing. But, you know, again, here we are eating, you know, love to eat, of course. And I mean, you know, look at these guys. Who wouldn't want to go have lunch with them? You know, I mean, there you go. All your Burleson cousins and more. Eating again, of course, different restaurant. Here we are. We're all just gathered up. Boy, we're just getting ready to order and have a great meal. And again, you know, it's kind of fun. You look around, you've met people that you have never met before, and you're thinking, gee, you know, that's my cousin. You know, I share some DNA with one of them. And occasionally you might find somebody even closer than that. Now, Jim, are you
Yes,
there?
ma'am.
Okay. In our last bulletin that was just published, or just fixing to be published, Jim did an article for us, and in referring to DNA, we have had a number of people that have come forward. I know I've had some that have contacted me, and they're, you know, they said, well, I was adopted, or, you know, my dad took off when I was just a baby. I don't know anything about the family. I'm not even sure who they were, or I was adopted. Nobody will give me any information. I'm trying to find my birth parents. And that DNA comes back and says, oh, well, here you got some connections to the Burleson family. So they turn to us, and it's kind of developed into a project because Jim has really taken it to heart. It's a very personal interest for him. And so he's trying to help a lot of these people. He calls it the Orphan Baby Project. And in this article that just came out in our latest bulletin, which if you're a member, you get copies of that. If you're not a member, then it's not accessible. But anyway, Jim says, with great pleasure and pride, I introduce to the Burlesons Bernice Eloise Thornton. Eloise is biologically Burleson by her father, and her maternal line is Leatherwood. Several years ago, this lady was able to locate her mother and find her, but apparently her mother did not give her the information as to who her father was. So now, with Jim's help and some of those other people that he mentioned, they hope to finally be able to let her know who her real biological Burleson father would have been. So that's one of the many projects that these wonderful DNA researchers and the genealogists are working on in the Burleson Family Association. So the DNA stuff, some people love it, some people hate it, some people really don't give a quack about it. But anyway, just a little joke to finish that off. Professor telling him, that's not what I meant when I asked you to rearrange the DNA. You don't turn the DNA into and, okay? So that gives you a little information about family associations and why you might really want to consider having one. Other information we have for the Burleson Family Association, we do have a website. This is front page. It's under burlesonfamilyassociation.org. It is a secure website. So when you go in there, let's say you want to join BFA, you click on that. And I'll go back to the map here in just a minute. Membership form to fill out, click submit. This is all secure and encrypted so that you're not going to have your information spread. And PayPal if you want to use it, or you can just mail a check. Now, Clarence and I live in Weatherford, Texas, and that's why Cindy was saying, you know, we're in Texas, and that's where we have our office and we kind of take care of things. But we have members and officers on our board from one coast to the other, from Washington State to North Carolina to Alabama to Florida, Oklahoma. We're spread all over. Through the years, the BFA has had members from every state other than the blue ones that I have here. So there's only a few states that I couldn't find in the records that we had ever had a member from. Otherwise, we've had people from everywhere. There are Burlesons in every state. There may not be very many, but you know, there are some there. Are Burleson family members, let's say. In the page on genealogy and DNA.
Can I just stop you right there? Ooh, and then you just moved away from your map. For those that are Burlesons, you know, what Kay just said is that there are Burlesons that are in the Burleson Family Association members that are in every state. So, you know, if you're one of those that just likes to join groups to, you know, vacation with, or to fill your interest in, you know, astronomy or whatever group you're into, if you're a group shopper, you like to be involved in groups, you know, in your Burleson, this is a group that they travel when COVID's not there. I mean, in other words, you have the opportunity to come from different states to different things that they're doing, different events that they're having, like the photos that she just showed. And you know, you have fellow members, and I'm going to call them members. I'm not going to call them families, family. I'm not going to call them, you know, even Burlesons or, you know, but they're members of this organization, you know, has members in every state. So, or other than those blue ones that she mentioned, which was just 4.
Right.
Sorry for that. And
no,
rally on, Kay, as you were saying.
Okay. Well, I just talk about the genealogy and DNA, and I think Clarence may want to say something in a minute, but in the DNA projects, and if you have a DNA test, there is a project for you, for sure. The Burleson name for the men includes the autosomal, the Y-DNA projects. So that's the one JD mentioned, father to son, to son, to son, to son, et cetera, all men. And some research results with that. Paul Cisco, Dr. Cisco, and John Hall Burleson are admins for that. This is the big Y DNA study that goes along with that. This one on the jedmatch.com, and Miss Matlock, are you still, oh, there you are.
Yes, I'm here.
This is the information about hooking up with the Burleson JEDmatch group that's doing the research that Jim was talking about earlier. And here's the information right here, how to join the Burleson Ancestor Project on JEDmatch.
Perfect.
If you have male or female, whether your name is Burleson or Chester or, you know, whatever, doesn't matter. But if you have Burleson DNA, by all means, please upload it to JEDmatch and join in with this project. Okay. Another little project they're working on is the children and the line of Aaron and Rachel Burleson from way back. And some of you may or may not be involved with that specific line. And the Northern and Southern Burlesons, now here you have, it's just a small rivalry, I guess you would say. So even though the first Burleson ancestor was Edward that came in to Suffolk up there, and then I believe it was grandson or great grandson. Where'd JD run off to? Help me out here.
Grandson Jonathan.
Was he a great grandson to Edward?
No, grandson to Edward. Jonathan.
Just a grandson. Okay. And he came south to North Carolina. Now this gentleman, Mr. Perry Streeter, and by the way, he does have another conflict that he needs to be passed on to you, JD. He is an authority on Northern Burlesons and people from the New England area, New York. And I know we have some members now too from up in that territory all the way across over to Michigan. But anyway, I'm talking way too much. Contacting us is very simple. It's on this web page, 2 or 3 different places and times, and at the bottom of every page, theburlesons@outlook.com is the email, and Clarence and I will get that for sure. Here's our phone numbers and our address as well. And you can send us inquiries, comments, just always try to be nice if you would, okay? And we have a contact page as well, same thing. By all means, send us a message, or if you have a genealogy question or something, let us know if we can help you. One book that JD didn't have on his list that I think Cindy Burleson had asked about last night, there was a book published called Burleson's Heaven, which is the nickname of the Westview Plantation in Alabama, and a lot of us visited that when we were there in 2019. Still have a living Burleson that resides there, raised his boys who are young men now. They're in that plantation home, and he and his wife still continue to live there. Take beautiful care of it. It's a beautiful place. And usually if you get to Alabama, you might let me give you the phone number and look him up. He's usually very proud to show you around the Burleson home there. Very quickly, we have one other website. It's called burlesongenealogy.info, and I'm the admin on both of these websites, put them together and maintain them. And it also has some area, talks about research, DNA, family history of the Burlesons and such. And so you might give that a browse. And again, there's contact information. And then most of you, a lot of you actually found us on Facebook. So you can always link from the website over to the current Facebook page, and I'm the admin for that. And it is under the Burleson Family Association. Now there's some other Burleson groups on Facebook, but this is our official one. And Thanksgiving, we felt it, my VP membership came up with this, and so I just copied what she did and put it here. And I just wanted to remind everybody there's always something for which to be thankful.
Yes.
And if there are any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them. And otherwise, oh, I'm sorry. I think my husband wanted to say something.
If anybody knows of Burleson and the Northern group and everything, we would like to get DNA from them to tie up some loose ends that are going out there, and we'd just like to have a Northern Burleson man do a Y DNA.
And I just want to back that up and say thank you for that, because that's, I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. As I'm getting into things, I am curious about the DNA, but I also want to know a little bit more about what is this Northern Southern line, and what is, you know, I want to know more. And I'm glad, Clarence, that you're reaching out in that way and saying, if anyone knows anything, that type of thing, because I certainly would like to see some more light shed on that. What's the difference between the Northern and Southern Burlesons? What's, you know, I'm curious. So thanks for bringing that up.
Okay, well, you're welcome. It's very simple, really. It's a matter of geography. The ones, the few that left up in the Northeast and came south and spread across to Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, all into California. But then there was a tremendous amount of those people that never left the North. They stayed in the Northeast, kind of migrated across up there from Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, Illinois, Michigan, and through that area. So that's kind of the geographical split. And one thing I did find when I was checking the Civil War information, we had Burlesons that fought for the Union. We had Burlesons that fought for the South. And it wasn't always what you would think. Sometimes we had a lot of Burlesons in the state of Tennessee, for example. Well, oftentimes they were split. You know, it truly was a war of family against family, brother against brother, because you would have, out of the same groups, one would go to the Union and one would stay and fight for the South. So that was an educational thing for me, and it was very interesting.
Yeah. And if you're looking at, if there's some type of divides or anything like that between the North and the South, and you either aren't prepared to talk about that or don't have the skill set to look at that, then how do you have the wherewithal to look at what we're celebrating today, the coming of America and the Pilgrims? And if you can't talk about your own family and northern and southern divides, whatever that is, how can you talk about the Native American Indians and Europeans coming to this country? And if you don't have the skill set to talk about that and address those issues of what happened, between the Indians and the Europeans, then you don't have the skill set to go back farther.
Doing fine.
About, different international relations amongst different countries.
I'm on a Zoom meeting.
How can you talk about those sort of issues? So as you learn more and you keep asking questions farther on into your history, then you're to the point where you might want to look at your DNA, and then what are you going to find, so you're building your skill sets along as you, go through and address the different, perhaps hostile areas or surprise areas or, areas that discussions are hard to have. As you go and you look and you go, conflict or issue by issue, you're only broadening your horizon. So, if you don't learn more about yourself and who you are, how, you may not be equipped to talk about your DNA, so.
Well, it's been difficult for some people that have found out, wow, the dad I thought was my dad all my life was not my dad. That's been a hard thing. JD?
Yeah, Kay, I was wanting to just add one comment.
Okay.
My second great grandfather's brother, Jonathan Burleson, they named the same names over and over, but he didn't go along with secession. And so he moved his family to Tennessee. He was a wagon, what do you call a guy that drives a wagon?
Teamster.
Teamster. There you go.
Yeah.
He was a teamster for the North. He had two sons fought for the Confederacy. He had another son that fought for the Union. And could you imagine the spot that put the mother in?
Yeah.
It's just, and that's how the country was divided then. You think we're divided now, but we don't even realize what went on back then.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it had to be hard.
Yes.
Definitely. Yeah. One other thing I was going to mention to some of you that I've not ever mentioned, there's a program called Finding My Relative Near Me or something like that. When you're in a large group of people, you can turn that app on, and if they have the app on as well, it connects. It goes through familysearch.org, the big genealogy thing up in Salt Lake City. And Clarence and I attended one of their big conferences called Roots Tech in Salt Lake City, and I guess it was last year, 2020. This one was canceled, but that one was going anyway. And so there were 7,600 participants there. 3,600, in excess of 3,600 of them were related to me. Now, I'm going down through the list and I'm looking, and whose name do I find but his? Okay. Clarence Burleson. He is my 11th cousin once removed. Isn't that crazy? And then it's like I'm going through my DNA results and I find Debbie Wise Denton, and we have a pretty close DNA match. Well, my maiden name was Cobb. Her maiden name is Wise. And I'm going, who is this woman? And then I find out she's a Burleson. And then, we worked together, and that's what Jim was saying. It hadn't been too long ago, I found out Debbie and I are like fifth cousins. I don't know exactly how she's related to Jim, but Jim and I are related. And so, you know, it's just
Weird.
wow. But I had a question, if somebody can help me with this. There is an old saying, something about if you go back like 7 generations, everybody is related to everybody. I wish Paul Cisco was here. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? Have you ever heard that old saying?
I don't think I heard it. But my theory is too, is so much of the Burleson and the Gages and the Shipmans and everybody moved together so many times in history. I think it's a natural thing that there's so many connections throughout different parts of everybody's ancestry because those families were intertwined and stayed together.
Yes, definitely. And that was a pretty normal track as well. You know, my ancestors came in at Jamestown. They went to Virginia. They came into North Carolina. So,
yeah,
you know, through the Cumberland Gap, part of them, and wound up in Tennessee as well. I mean, that was just the normal path that people took back in the day. And they married and intermarried along the way, you know, with people that they met and lived by. Sorry, JD.
One thing that back in early North Carolina, when they first came down the wagon road and settled in Western North Carolina, Sandy Run Creek Baptist Church has a roster, and I've got a lady that's doing research on that writes for my newsletter, and she called me and said, everybody in that church is related. She found her husband, who was a Burleson. He was related to a person in that church that wasn't a Burleson, though, but he's not a Burleson. He's related to it. He's a Booth, but she was so excited that she found that everybody in that church roster is related now. So we're all kissing cousins. So let's just accept.
I'll kiss somebody. Well, the only thing is with COVID, nobody can kiss anybody. That's
yes.
And what I said, you know, went to Thanksgiving dinner at the granddaughter's today and wore my mask the whole time except when I was eating. No hugging and kissing. It's just sad situation. But we got to keep on keeping on, right, Bob?
Wake up, Bob.
Is Bob still there?
No, he looks like he's
Yep.
Yeah.
so bad. Yes.
Well, in between, Bob had a question that appeared on my screen. Could anyone talk about the negatives of DNA? And I don't mind talking. Any of us can talk, but let him flesh out his question.
The negative I'm thinking about is not about doing it, or as you're talking about, but being aware of the limits of privacy. And so many people frequently have the experience of thinking their data is more private than it is. And there's breaches of databases and all sorts of ways of losing control. So my question has to do with the risk of like health insurance company getting a hold of DNA results that show that someone might be at risk for breast cancer or something like that. And the next thing you know, you got a letter canceling your insurance. So I'm sure you've looked into that. I'm sure you've thought about that. And so my question had to do with how do you minimize that risk?
Once you DNA test with a company, about the only control that you have of it after that is you tell them if you want the information to go to certain places and be used for certain things. Other than that, you don't really have control over that DNA. And it is something that, too, by the way, the attorneys will tell you, put something in your will about what you want done with your DNA, because they will keep it forever. and that information will be out there forever, even after you're gone. So that's something that you might think about too. But otherwise, I can't really answer your question, Bob. Does anybody else have any insight about that, or had any experiences with that?
I will say, let me say just that in the recent reorganization of JEDCOM, they issued new rules that they promulgated to everybody that participates that says they will not release your genetic information to private individuals, private companies, and there is an opt-in for it to be released to law enforcement. That used to not be true, but the new rules are you have to opt in, take some cognitive move to say, I will allow law enforcement to have access to my genetic information. So that's maybe 18 months old.
Okay.
Now,
that's newer.
Just like Debbie Wise Denton, we were talking about her, she and Denise Sprode are what we call adoption angels. They go out and help find who your parents are. I help them. And we have had some people who said, well, how did you know? How did you get that information? It's opposite of what my outcome wanted to be. And our answer has consistently been, well, you shouldn't have asked. You took this test looking for your relative. We found them and you're disappointed with the results. And I don't mean to laugh or make light of it, but it's sort of the same thing. If you bother to take a test, you're doing it knowing full well that's going to be shared by tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
Now, I take great delight, having been a retired lawman, that we find a lot of bad guys, really, really bad guys through DNA. And they never took a test till they got arrested. And then it turns out even a family member of theirs took a test and it led to them. I'm hard pressed to feel bad about it.
How efficient is that? Thank you. You know, what resources have been saved in professionals like you in law enforcement being tasked with trying to solve these mysteries and protect security. If you have a tool such as DNA that people have opted into, then I think that that's wonderful. Also, in addressing what Bob's saying about the concerns about health coverage and privacy, you know, again, it is an opted-in thing. For my health coverage, which I am so thankful to have, you know, it's not the same with everybody, but my health coverage is more of a administrating of making sure I have all my your appointments that you take before you're sick. What's it called? Pre something. What is it?
Pre-existing.
No, not that word.
Preventative.
Preventative. Thank you. There goes my mind. Thank you. Sorry about that. But the preventative care. I mean, if you're going to go through all your preventative care, it takes an administrator to do that. If there's something like DNA that will help me say, okay, where are my trouble spots? Instead of just being all over the place, I need a tool, and I'm thankful that I have had the tool. Compliments of the state of Nevada through the Healthy Nevada Project that is available to all Nevadans if they want to get their DNA tested. Thanks to that, I know what my trouble spots are. And I know that coffee and caffeine is not one of those. So I can have as much as I want. To me, you know, I think it's a tool that helps me be more efficient when I'm in charge of my own body to keep it going. And I think it's more efficient in like law enforcement side as far as, you know, if people have opted into it, and it sure does make trying to figure out who the person responsible for this heinous act is. It helps them narrow down in a way, offers them a tool that they would not have otherwise. Now, of course, there is that possibility of us of siblings having the same DNA match and all of that. There are issues with that, but it certainly does narrow down your workload and focuses you in on what the task at hand is, you know.
I have a question about your test.
Okay.
I'm asking on behalf of my big sis Paula Denson wants to know, your company is something Helix?
Okay, you are talking about my company. You're talking about the company that gave me my DNA results. It was a company called Helix, and it is one of the groups that is contracted with Healthy Nevada Project. I believe
Okay.
it would be healthynevadaproject.org. You go on to their website, you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, and there's lots of different corporate sponsors, and Helix is one of them. And when they gave me my results back, they came from Helix. But
Do you know if their results are compatible with uploading to GEDCOM?
well, that's where we're at, and I kind of feel like that's a I don't mind sharing my personal story, my personal genealogy, but that's where I'm personally, I need to do that like next week or the next couple of weeks. And I have an email into someone I don't recognize in front of me in this Zoom call if she's here, but we're having that discussion. We're trying to figure that out, the GED match thing.
Cindy, I'd like to clarify a point about my question. My question had nothing to do with law enforcement, and it had nothing to do with helping you take care of your health. My question had to do with the public's relationship with health insurance companies. And as we all know, they have an enormous incentive to only insure healthy people as much as they can. They want to avoid insuring people who are likely to get sick next year. And there's all sorts of ways they try to do that. And so my question had to do with, are you comfortable with insurance companies gaining access either through legitimate or illegitimate means to DNA testing, which could reflect sort of tendencies towards different kinds of illness, diabetes, cancer, and that sort of thing. So that was my question, not law enforcement and not taking care of your own health.
Sure, Bob, I thought
with the, the nightmare would be that you had your DNA tested and 2 years later, out of the blue, you get a letter giving you no reason, telling you that your policy has been canceled.
Okay, Bob, I thought I answered that. So let me be a little clearer. The big warehouse that stores everybody's DNA is this GEDCOM, GEDmatch, GEDfile, that group. They specifically cannot release DNA results to individuals or private companies. So that's how their lawyers have instructed them to deal with it. And so when you sign up for GEDCOM, you have assurances in their disclaimers that it cannot be used for exactly the purposes you're describing.
That's really good. And that's reassuring. What's not reassuring is the fact that large companies like Facebook and Experian credit reports from time to time have intrusions into their databases and will lose the data of 2 million people all of a sudden. Those things happen, and I suspect they might happen again in the future. So again, my question was, are you comfortable with that possibility?
Well, Clarence and Kay, have you heard of any breaches with regard to GEDCOM in the past?
I have not.
No, I have not, but I agree with Bob. You know, hacking is going to happen.
Sure.
You can almost bet on it at some point. Are they going to have a reason for going in and getting that DNA information? I don't know. Your bank information probably be a lot more valuable to somebody that was going to hack. The other thing too, an insurance company would really have to think twice before they used illegally gained information to do something like cancel your policy.
You would hope so.
You would certainly hope so.
Yeah.
They would really be putting themselves in a liable spot to be in a lot of trouble legally and, you know, financially, losing all their customers for something like that. But it is a good question, Bob. And you have to worry about losing your private information with just about everything you do. You know, you can, like our website, you know, I was talking about, you can encrypt it, you can secure it, you can do whatever those secure socket layer things are. And there's people that are going to figure all that out, you know.
And actually it's connected to our controversy, political controversy about Affordable Care Act. And part of what that gave people was coverage even of pre-existing conditions.
Yes.
And of course, then the other group says, we want to take that away. We don't want you to have that. So that goes back and forth. And so what you're talking about with DNA, you might call evidence of pre-existing conditions.
And you know, Bob, I think represents a whole lot of people, you know, and the questions that he's bringing forth are, you know, the questions that a lot of people have. And I think, Kay, in your slide, you either basically said with DNA, you're either all about it or you're all opposed to it or something like that. But I tell you what, for those that don't have a problem with it and are just wanting to move forward with more information and have more questions about it, you know, like Cisco in his presentation just kind of really answered some things that, you know, things that could happen. And, you know,
I hope it never happens.
Well,
all I know is when I tested for Ancestry about 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I couldn't wait to get my results back. I remember thinking at the time, hearing about be careful, insurance companies might take your information and stuff. But, you know, I've had trouble with healthcare since I retired. So that's a whole different story. So anyways, I just knew that I had to take the risk because I wanted the information that I knew I would get back. And to hear that, you know, all this stuff is kept forever and ever, I kind of like, well, I guess I don't worry too much about it because I think we have to keep those links because this is what's happened in our society through time is families have lost touch with each other and lost information. And I've said this 100 times in my talking to JD and Kay and everybody on the Zoom calls. I think the most important thing that we can do as a family group is document these stories and the things that we learn about our family or the things that we can put down for the future family, because otherwise they just get lost in time. And when you test an ancestry, you have to take that risk because I wanted to take that risk. I wanted to know as much as I could. And I didn't care if people saw when I put everything public, I wanted people to see it because it helped me make connections.
it's like, I'm here.
Yes.
Over here.
It's more like I found people that have the same DNA.
Yeah, so
I'm so excited.
I'm not trying to hide from anyone.
Yes.
3,000 pages that you have.
Number.
Yes.
That's what I'm made of. You know?
Cindy, can I ask a question? Can I ask the question, Cindy?
Yes.
I noticed Mary Strickland just joined. Could you ask her maybe to introduce herself? I don't know who she is.
Oh, there she is. There's Mary over there. We were talking about you earlier, Mary.
Hi, Mary.
I'm sorry that I was late. I totally forgot, and then we were eating leftovers. So I am Mary Strickland, Strickland's wife. He's a descendant of Archie Jane Burleson through Archie Jane, Pleasant Wright Burrell, and back to John Crawford. So we got to Texas in 1860. And I'm here because Amy Matlock Bartlett told me about this meeting. We met at the Kyle Cemetery meeting recently in Kyle, Kyle County, Amy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kyle
Hayes
County.
County. Hayes
Yeah.
County.
Oh,
Mhm.
Hayes County. Sorry about that. So,
Oh, but let me interrupt and mention one thing. You know, JD was talking about going to the presentation about how to take care of the tombstones. And
yes.
he went in Maryland, actually.
Oh,
Yeah, which was closer for him than Texas was. But it was the same presenter that was there at the Kyle Cemetery.
Wow.
Mary's the one
oh,
who
that's
originally told
great.
me about that, JD, and that I passed that information on to you about the cemetery restoration stuff.
Yes.
Mary's my original source for that.
Oh, that was John Appel.
Right.
He
Right.
did.
He
Oh,
did.
wasn't that great?
He was doing 48 states in 48 days.
Yes.
He got sidetracked
Yep.
on a couple of states because of weather. And Kay, I need to apologize. I'm taking care of my 91-year-old mother-in-law back and forth to Houston. And so I have not written anything for you, but I totally think that the Burlesons should be cleaning our headstones.
Yes, I agree. I definitely agree. We both agreed last time that it definitely needs some work for sure.
Okay, well, Mary, you'll be glad to know that in our last board meeting that we set aside funds for cemetery preservation.
Awesome.
Yes, and I had you in my mind for that, and some projects of JD's as well. So, yeah, we do need to talk about things that we would like to get done.
I'm in Falls County, Texas, and I have found some Burleson headstones that needed repair, and I've asked those cemetery organizations to do that, whether that happens or not. But I'm working on Falls County and identifying Burleson, Falls and Limestone, actually. So.
Okay. Oh, okay, Bob, got your message.
Bye, Bob.
Bye, Bob.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate the song. I'm going to be remembering that forever.
Yeah, yeah.
That was great.
On song.
Toodaloo.
Bye-bye.
And I tell you, it is about time for us to wrap this up. We have about 10 minutes left. And we've been here.
Yeah.
We've stayed the whole time, you know.
Yes,
come
yep.
In and out, and it's been great conversation. Before anyone leaves, make sure that you put who you are and where you're from, or where you're physically from, where you're sitting right now, and in the chat, just so we know where you're from. And then of course those on YouTube Live and Facebook Live that are hearing us, we appreciate you being here, and we welcome you to find your way into the Zoom room for the Christmas. We're going to do the same thing on Christmas Day. So you have between now and Christmas to find out what how to get into the Zoom meeting, and hopefully we will have our camera settings so that those on YouTube and Facebook can actually see us instead of just hearing us. So I want to wish everybody a closing of a great Thanksgiving and the opening of a wonderful holiday season. And perhaps you're having a pause in your state and where you're from with the COVID, like our state is, where our governor has issued not a shutdown and not a go out and party and spread anything. He's simply ask us to pause. And so our schools are pausing through distance learning beginning next week. And, you know, we're going into a season of pause. So I wish you a very peaceful pause. And in wrapping up, would anybody like to add anything before we need to?
Oh, I've enjoyed it. I've
I
enjoyed
did too. This was fun.
Time has passed much quicker than 3 hours. It's like, wow, gone.
Cindy.
Leftovers.
And it encourages us to just keep on keeping on.
Absolutely, April. Thanks to Bob. Yes.
Sydney, do we have time? I would like to show the two ladies that was interested in the restoration what I did this past month, if we've got time. It won't take but 2 minutes probably.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Can I share the screen?
You should be able to. Let me make sure, and you should. So go ahead and try it. Just talk us through what you're showing us so that those that can't see us here in the room today can understand what you're saying through the audio. This is going to be a good podcast.
I didn't really prepare for this, but I'm going to be able to find it, I think. This is our logo for it. It's called Burleson Keepers. And this was the Dan Fur Cemetery.
That's a great logo, April. Are you still?
Oh, look at this.
Delaney,
please.
They're saying what a great logo. She's got her headphones on her own computers.
Thank you, guys.
I'm proud of her. She did a good job.
Oh, JD, I love it.
Also, this was what the cemetery looked like. When we met there with Annette, who was on our broadcast, I think she's left, but this was Annette and her husband and David Allman. And this is the owner of the property, and he was so helpful with us. And this is one of the stones that we were going to repair. This is his wife's stone that we repaired. This is a distant shot of the cemetery in my old pick-em-up truck. But this is the limbs and everything that was hanging down in the cemetery. It's hard to walk in there. Like I say, these are the two stones before we started cleaning. And this is the finished product.
Wow.
I leveled them up like John Appel showed us how to do.
That was really neat.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
Here's epoxy to join them back together. I wasn't as able to match it as good as I hoped I would, but they're still together and they're still solid.
Yeah, and it looks better, way better.
Oh, they're so clean and bright now. That's awesome.
Annette has also got the Confederate cross. I don't know the name. It's got a name, but it's a monument that you put in front of the stone for a Confederate veteran. And she's going to get a bunch of cousins together, and we're going to do like a little memorial service and put that cross in front of the stone. And this is Rosemary. She was on a little earlier. She's also a great-granddaughter of Columbus. And the owner of the property, and if you got the right equipment, everything works out great. He had a dump truck and brought a load of dirt. A cousin of mine, Lee Snuggs, and his son Wyatt, climbing up in that tree and cutting the limbs back. And then we hauled all that dirt in there and filled in a bunch of holes and everything. And then finally, a job well done. And that's what the cemetery looks like now.
Certainly was. Good job.
Mm-hmm.
Good job, JD.
That's
definitely.
I just think it's the best work. Oh my gosh.
Well,
Look at that.
I
So
appreciate
cool.
all that. And really, that's my claim to fame right now. That's what I want to do. And I think it's very worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
JD, where did you see Jonathan Appel?
Frederick, Maryland.
Okay.
That was the last day. I wasn't able to go when he was in North Carolina. So I found out about it, and I'm going to stop sharing. I found out about it the day before. Well, the day before. And the next day they were doing it in Washington, D.C. And
that's awesome.
And I couldn't get there in Washington, but I didn't really want to fight the traffic and go to Washington. I'm so glad I waited and drove another hour north and went to Frederick, Maryland. And it was the Mount Olivet Cemetery. It's where Francis Scott Key is buried. And it was a history lesson in itself, just being at the cemetery. and then what John and his people showed us how to do, I was just overwhelmed. And so I went back to my group and asked them if they was going to buy the chemicals I needed. The epoxy's expensive, but they were very nice about it, and they donated. We put some money in a cemetery fund like Kay was talking about. And so that's what I'm going to be working on locally when I can't get out and go anywhere else. I don't think I'll catch any germs from these people.
I'm on the board. I'm on the board of the Falls County Historical Commission, and I've gotten totally disgusted with the care of the cemeteries here. So I have just gotten permission to start rounding people up to do that kind of work. And thank you so much. Thank you. It's important.
That's what I want to say, JD, Kay, Jim, all of you that have put so much time into just documenting all this and keeping it going. I want to learn how to do it and help you guys. Thank you for everything you've done.
I think we need a day when we are taught. You know, that Burleson Cemetery outside of Smithville that's up on the hill, it was in such bad shape when we were there 15 years ago. And I dream about going up there and cleaning those headstones.
We can make a day of it, Mary.
I think so.
Yeah.
You know, the D2 chemical that he used to clean them, that works really well.
He gave us a sample.
It's a good chemical, but it takes a lot of elbow grease.
A lot of times we can just spray it on and walk off. And you come back, it's totally amazing. If you clean it properly beforehand with the lichen and all that junk that gets on it, it's really easy. We have a company down here that we're working with out of Crockett, Texas. And we have a company in Hayes County that's awesome. And so there are people around that are willing to teach lessons. And so I was going to talk to Kay about when we have something in Texas, maybe spending some time with a group showing us, because we
have cousins here, Mary, here in Texas, like in Cedar Park, Pflugerville, and so there's people here.
Tons of Burlesons there.
Mary, can I ask you a question real quick? Of course. We went to a cemetery in Bastrop back in 2016, I think.
Yes.
Is that where Joseph is buried?
We went to the one where Joseph was buried, but there was another very small one up on a hill outside of a trailer, and the people who owned the trailer were taking care of it. What's happened with the cemetery where Joseph is buried?
That's the Burleson Blakey Cemetery that I wrote about on the website. I wrote that article on the website.
Burleson Blakey?
Blakey, B-L-A-K-E-Y. Yeah,
okay.
That's actually in Bastrop. That's the one where the lady lives there that raises all the bulls and everything, and she won't let anybody come in because of the livestock.
Yeah.
We're having a terrible time with the Texas laws and getting into cemeteries. And we've got some senators and representatives that talk big, but nothing's happened. And the Historical Commission says, if somebody owns land, they can come in and plow it under. You don't have to do anything. And that is a really bad thing right now. We're working on a black cemetery from the 1800s right now. And it's just amazing that you can just, if you own it, plow it under. So I'm trying to get control of everything I can.
Well, I guess it's different in different states. It's against the law to do that in North Carolina, but there's people that's done it, and got away with it. But it is against the law, and they have to, in North Carolina, they have to give you access to it.
They're supposed to here, but they don't.
There's the law on the books in Texas that says you have to be granted reasonable access to the cemetery.
No, it's not happening. We've got too many cases right now.
Yeah.
And we fought it on one and got it. So our courthouse is under construction right now. So I can't get to the records that I need to fight some other things, but I've got several of those going on.
I've got something to say. Another way, if you have a Boy Scout troop that's in the area, some of the boys that are going to be for the, I don't know what scout degree it is and everything, that they can take on, and that club will come out. You can ask them, and a lot of them will volunteer to come out and clean up the cemetery.
Yeah, it's like, you know, earning a badge or their Eagle Scout or something like that. The DAR does cemetery cleanups and clean headstones and stuff like that too, if there is a patriot in the cemetery.
We have 17,000 people in our county. And so there's no one except 10 or 15 of us that get involved. So we're working on it.
Right. Okay. All right. I think Cindy's telling us to go home.
Thanks, Cindy. Thank y'all.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
See everybody.
Bye,
Take
guys.
care.
I just want to thank everybody for being here today and let you know again that we're doing it again at Christmas time. And the information is up here on the screen on how to get into the Zoom room. And we just look forward to Christmas and have an excellent holiday.
Will it be the same number and password?
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect.
That's changing. And as a matter of fact, if you'd like, I could go ahead and shut this meeting down with all the extras, but you're welcome to stay here in this space and talk and catch up. It's been a nice.
I have to get going, but Cindy, I'm going to send you my number.
We'll be sitting here at 10 o'clock tonight, so no. 10 o'clock my time. Okay,
Yep.
very nice to visit with everybody.
Yes.
Everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for
Bye-bye.
setting this up.
Bye.
Bye, cousins.